Welcome to Pensar Basketball Live. We are doing a mailbag episode for the first time this season. I apologize for starting a little bit late, getting my coffee. Okay, some cool stuff today. We are definitely going to be taking a lot of mailbag questions. We have over 20, and they're very Raptor specific, but I encourage anybody who still has some more questions, you can type it down in the community post. It doesn't have to be Raptor stuff. It can be, it can be a lot of things. It can be NBA, it can be what's going on in the current in-season stuff. It can be cap. It can be, the next TV deal. It can be a lot of stuff. Where's the community post? It is on YouTube. Just go check YouTube community. All right. Before we get to the Instagram and YouTube community posts, let us quickly play a quick little thing. So I was doing some digging today, because I was noticing the Scotty Barnes analytics profile was really strange to me. Specifically that he was having such an immense impact in terms of box plus minus with such a low usage, which is 23.9. So I created a cutoff of 24% usage, and I created a cutoff of 6 box plus minus, and I wanted to find out in the last 25 years how many players had hit over 6 box plus minus, which by the way isn't a lot of players. There's a lot of the same names over and over. You're going to see a lot of Jokic, a lot of Tracy McGrady, a lot of LeBron James over and over and over. It's not a lot of players. It's not, but how many of those players actually did it with sub 24% usage? So here's the list. You can definitely, if you're watching this after, you can definitely stop it and just look at the names. It's pretty impressive. Please do hit the like. By the way, we're also going to talk a little bit about Dennis Schroder, and then we're going to answer all your questions, and hopefully we can have a lively community chat. Cool. All right. And here goes. Okay. So first of all, to anyone who has not seen this already, please don't cheat. But since 1999-2000, only 7 players have posted a box plus minus of 6.0 or above while posting a usage rate lower than 24%. Okay. No, and no, ironically. No, none of them. So does anyone have any guesses? I've already kind of hinted that Scotty is one of those players. Does anyone have any hints as to who someone else might be on that list? The minute we get one right, no guessing like 15 answers, just get one right and I will play this video. Jokic is correct. Chauncey's correct. All right, let's go. So here's the list. Okay. I think it's gonna surprise some people. Someone said Marion. Nope. So John Stockton is one of them, and I'll stop as we go. This is season by season. It's broken down by season, right? So we go right back to 1999, and right there you have all these guys, and I've bolded out or highlighted every player who did it on sub 24% usage. But worth noting, there aren't exactly a lot of non-superstars, if any non-superstar players who've ever clipped 6.0 box plus minus. To just give you an idea of how rare the air Scotty's breathing is. So there's John Stockton is one. Someone saying Dirk? Absolutely not. Nope. John Stockton is one. Chauncey Billups is 2. Chauncey did it once. Andre Kirilenko is 3. I believe Andre did it twice or once. You do it twice? I think he did it once. Chauncey did it once. And now you're going to see a lot of Chris Paul seasons. This is basically how Chris Paul played. Okay. So Steve Nash did have a lot of low usage seasons. Unfortunately, Steve Nash did not clip 6 box plus minus because his defense was so bad. Interestingly enough. But yes, even MVP Steve Nash did not clip 6 box plus minus. See a lot of Chris Paul seasons. Chris Paul. Now we start to get into the one Jokic season. Now Jokic has clipped 6.0 box plus minus every year since this season, but it's worth noting that his usage did start to go up and up and up to the point where it started to climb up to like 30%. And then we don't have anybody do it for a really long time. We have Chris Paul at 24.5. We have Nikola Jokic at 24.2, but it's not quite clipping the mark that I had set of 24%. And then we have one of my favorite players do it last season, which was Tyrese Halliburton last year at 23.8, just making the mark. And then we got your boy, Scotty Barnes. That's 7 players in 25 years that have done this. It is pretty rare. And what do almost all of these players, except for 2, have in common? 2-way impact. That's really how you get there. Okay, now let us remove this screen and let's talk about something which also pertains to impact and usage and the relationship between those two. And that is what Dennis Schroder said today. Now, I'd like to think that despite the reputation of being a Fred hater last year, I don't think I actually hated Fred. I hated what he was doing. I kind of hated the way he was playing, partially because I knew he was capable of so much more. Do you know that Fred VanVleet is under 20% usage this year? If you pay him and you get a coach who can hold him in check, he can be a really good point guard. And he's been a really good point guard for the Houston Rockets. Alperen Sengun is north of 27%. So he's not like doing what he was doing last year. So in a lot of ways, I think some fans could probably look at what Nick Nurse is doing in Philly, what Fred VanVleet is doing in Houston, and say, were we the problem? Is the problem here? Is Masai the problem? Because these 2 guys are doing fine elsewhere. The leopard can change its spots, right? Or maybe the leopard can't change its spots. I think I screwed that quote up. But I guess what I'm saying is, I watched this all unfold last year. These guys are marching to a different beat. They're in a completely different situation. They certainly were not about to morph into those people in this situation. So it's a little bit like looking at your ex with her new boyfriend. You know what I mean? I think people should just let it go. We certainly were not paying Fred VanVleet that amount of money or giving him the reins to lead our franchise or whatever. So I just think like it's a little bit weird. So the thing with Dennis, I don't hate Dennis Schroder. I certainly don't hate him. I don't hate Pascal Siakam. I don't hate any players. But I do have an issue when a player just outright comes out and lies. It really bothers me. It grinds some sort of like nerve with me because number one, I don't think that this media space necessarily holds these guys accountable when they lie to their face. Number two, when a lie goes unchecked, it starts to build up steam and then people start to repeat it and it starts to sort of feel like fact. So I want to just check it when I hear it. This is a lie.
I'm not that type of player who want to, go against somebody to.
That's a lie. And he spent a lot of today's press conference talking about this concept of being a team first player. He alluded to the fact that if the team wins, he doesn't care, how he's not a one-on-one player. Hold up, buddy. Hold up. I watched you play for 12 years. Every fan base that I have ever seen has an issue with Dennis Schroder's shot selection. I want to put into perspective how ball dominant Dennis Schroder has been. And I think the best way to put this is to ask you guys the question. Okay. There have been thousands of players in NBA history, okay? We're talking all the way back to the NBA-ABA merger. There have been thousands of players that have existed in the NBA, right? Where do you think Dennis Schroder is in terms of all-time career usage? Do you think he's top 300, top 500? Like, where do you think he is? It may shock you to realize that Dennis Schroder, in terms of all-time usage, is exactly 100th. Thank you. Exactly 100th at 25.13. Here are the players that Dennis Schroder has a higher usage than. The list will shock you. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Manu Ginobili, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett. Shall I keep going? Chris Bosh. I mean, dude, like there are so many Hall of Famers who did not get to 25% career usage. Now, to those of you who say, wait, those guys are not point guards. That's not how usage is calculated. And I implore anyone who has that argument to please go and check how usage is calculated. It has a great deal to do with turnovers, free throw attempts, field goal attempts, Basically, it's an assists, sure, but it's not a point guard stat. Okay. In fact, if you notice this thing that I brought up for you, notice how many of those players are point guards or point guard adjacent. 4 of the 5 of those players are point guards, and the 5th and the 6th one is basically a center who plays like a point guard. And the 7th one really shouldn't be on this list to begin with because most of his box plus minus came from the defensive side. So really, it's not about like, oh, you handle the ball a lot, so you have high usage. Chris Paul handles the ball a lot. Jokic handled the ball a lot. Tyrese Halliburton handles the ball a lot. Usage has a lot to do with how much of an imprint you make on the offense in terms of your offensive contributions towards shots. Like how many shots do you take? And it's broken down per possession, so it won't matter as much that a guy has like, I don't know, like 12 minutes a game because it'll prorate it per 100 possessions. Dennis Schroder has played off the bench, but here's something that would shock you. Despite being top 100 in the NBA all time, just think about the players that have played in the NBA. I mean, like we're talking Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, like why my God, every generation. At no point in the NBA history could you ever drop Dennis Schroder onto a roster and say he's a top 50 player ever. How did he end up top 100 in terms of all-time usage? If he's not a one-on-one player, he's not he doesn't call his number. Yo, man, Coach Mo sent me a beautiful article from the Boston Herald, I believe, which talked about how the Boston Celtics, Brad Stevens, had soured on Dennis Schroder because ultimately they got sick and tired of him calling his own number all the time and thinking he was a star, thinking he was a superstar. This is who he's been his whole career. This is why he's played on 6 different teams. He's on a 6 different team. How many players do you know that are really, really good that have played on 6 different teams in the number of years he's played on? You're talking like guys like Christian Wood? Yeah, like journeyman. Incredible. Now, here's the staggering part about all of this. Despite his 25.13% usage, which, by the way, is higher than Klay Thompson, Ray Allen, like Hall of Famers, man, real Hall of Famers, he is posting a career true shooting percentage, which is 53%. That is considerably below league average, regardless of what era we're talking about, okay? He posts a career box plus minus of negative 1.3. He's never been an all-star. He's never been close to an all-star. He's barely ever been a starter. This is the guy you're letting come into your organization and pretend he's the leader. This is the guy who is unquestionably a starter and Gary's got to go to the bench. Let me conclude with my final point. Last live and today I made a bit of a stink on Twitter about what my starting lineup for the Toronto Raptors would be. And it would be Scotty at point, Gary at the 2, OG at the 3, Pascal at the 4, Chris Boucher at the 5. My justification for this would be Dennis plus Siakam seems to be the thing that's going on, in the offense. I don't necessarily like it, even though it's very efficient. Put it on the bench. Let them come off the bench. Let them dominate against bench units. I think they'd be even more effective against bench units. It would certainly give you one of the best benches in the NBA. You can add Otto Porter, Javon Freeman Liberty, and one of Precious Achiuwa or Grady Dick on a nightly basis, depending on matchups. And boom, you have a solid team. You open up space in your starting lineup. You have shooting around Scotty and Pascal. I don't understand this concept of, well, we signed Dennis to be a starter. We signed Jakob to be a starter. So let's put these 2 guys next to, 3 guys who need space. OG needs space. Pascal needs space. Scotty needs space. Boucher and Gary give you more space. I think this is a freaking really smart idea. And I think that I'm not wrong. Now, a lot of people clowned this on Twitter, had a lot of quoted, reposts and stuff. People are like, this guy doesn't understand basketball. Hold up. The main beef with this is that Chris Boucher is not a center. And this is where I say facts. Facts don't give a shit about your feelings. The last time the Raptors were in the playoffs, they were facing off against the Philadelphia 76ers. You know what was interesting about that series? 2 things. Number 1, even though you started Khem Birch for a bunch of those games, Chris Boucher was effectively your center against Joel Embiid, by the way. He posted a 24.2 PER. He posted 72.2% true shooting, and he was, by the analytics, your best player. He played center in the playoffs and did that. Presumably, unless you think that he's weaker today than he was back then, I mean, the league has certainly gone smaller since that day. And Joel Embiid is like the biggest center in the league. So if he was able to do that against Joel Embiid and tread water, and you were able to win a couple of games, despite, how poorly Fred VanVleet was playing, despite the fact that Scotty Barnes went out for a few games, certainly this concept of Chris Boucher can never start at center should be kind of stupid, right? But it doesn't stop people from saying it because it feels right. The second thing that people don't like about it is that Scotty's not a point guard. His handle's not this. His handle's not that. Need I remind you, as a rookie, he started at point in the playoffs. You have won exactly 2 playoff games in 4 years. Guess who was the point guard in those 2 games? Scotty Barnes. So he has come such a long way with his handle since that time. He's a better passer today. He's a better shooter today. He's a better pick and roll ball handler than he was as a rookie. So if it worked then in the playoffs, tell me why it can't work now. If it worked against the Sixers, why can't it work against the Hornets? It's crazy to me. You would unlock a massive transition offense. This is absolutely political that Dennis Schroder and Jakob Poeltl start. No questions asked, no matter how much it hurts the other players. Look, most teams don't think this way. I watched the in-season tournament game last night. When matchups dictated, Willie Green put Zion Williamson on the bench in favor of going with a more switchable, I think, shooter-friendly lineup, against the Kings. There was a lot on the line. They decided to go with Herb Jones and Trey Murphy. I like that. And Zion was on the bench clapping because that's what team basketball is, right? So I don't understand this concept of this guy has to start. It's Jakob Poeltl. It's not Hakeem Olajuwon. It's not Tim Duncan. He's a role player. Dennis Schroder is a role player. I don't understand what this franchise is doing. If I have any criticism of Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, it is this. Stop making role players into priorities. They are supposed to be pieces that fit in. Anyways, now that I've gotten that off my chest, 17 minutes in, let's get to some questions. All right. I'll start with the Instagram questions. Also, I put a Twitter poll up because I'm just genuinely kind of trolling, but also kind of sick of hearing that Tyrese Haliburton and Domantas Sabonis is an even trade. So if you follow us on Twitter, you can definitely go vote on this, where I asked the question of everybody, and the votes so far are very much in favor of what I thought would happen. Would you rather have Tyrese Haliburton, or would you rather have Domantas Sabonis and 2 first-round picks? Now, granted, the trade was Buddy Hield plus Tyrese Haliburton for Domantas Sabonis. There was other stuff too, right? But mainly, you got to understand, I'm flipping the trade, and it's still going to be in favor of Tyrese. That's crazy. So everyone's saying that the trade was even. Stop it. Like, you're crazy. Royce Honchu says, would you trade Dennis for Kyle Kuzma? Yes. M. Furlano says, how important is Dillon Brooks has been culture-wise for Houston, and how much does Memphis miss him? He's been incredibly important for their culture. I think he brings a lot of swagger and toughness to a team that otherwise lacks it. I think overall there's, the law of diminishing returns. Like, I think over some period of time, the honeymoon period does end with players like Dillon Brooks. Certainly, if you go back to 2019, 2020, the Memphis Grizzlies were very, very happy to have Dillon Brooks. After 3 years, they wanted him to leave. So it's kind of the same thing, right? Difficult personalities, they become difficult over time, right? So once you go on a bus ride with a dude like 10, 15, 20 times, right, you may not catch everything that they're doing wrong for your team chemistry, your locker room, whatever. But after 200 bus rides, the patterns start to emerge, right? And again, like, if I'm a basketball player that plays for the Toronto Raptors and I hear Dennis's message on day one, I'm very inspired. right? He comes out, he says he doesn't care who's starting, whatever, right? But then I play with him for 20 games and I see this guy go one-on-one all the time. And now I see him doing media scrums where he's saying, I don't go one-on-one. I'm not that type of player. Now I'm like, you just straight bullshit. So now 20 games in, I have a very different impression of the guy than I did on day 0. And I presume that after 80 games of watching him do this and talk one game and do another thing, I think I'm going to fuck with this guy a little bit differently. So that's the thing. Can Scotty make the All-Star game this season? If so, what's the percentage? I'm pretty firm that Scotty's right now like a top 15 player. So if he doesn't make the All-Star team, it would be criminally insane. He should make the All-Star team. It's tough because the league is really talented and there are certain players who are probably going to get in on reputation or because of team success. He will be an incredibly, tough snub, but I've always said that every single year there's about 35 to 40 All-Stars and like 24 are going to make it. So, maybe someone gets injured or whatever, maybe he's a replacement, but yeah, I would say it's 50-50 right now, but he is definitely one of the top 15 players in the NBA right now. Thierry Fontaine says, are you surprised by Dennis's 3-point percentage this year? No, I'm not. It's a very small sample size. And yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't be surprised if it was 40%. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 28%. I expect him to be somewhere in the middle of those two ranges. So if he ends the season 32, that's perfectly within expectation. If he ends the season at 35, also within expectations. Yeah. Okay, let's get to the YouTube questions. Am I going fast enough? Am I going too slow? I don't know. You guys let me know. Okay. Okay, let's get to this. Rob, you really believe Barnes is top 15? Yes, I really do, Mark, because I value defense a little bit more than you probably do. Okay. Okay, Scott plays 2K. Damn, man, I love this community. Y'all have like some awesome questions. Like I look at no shade to other communities, but I see some of those questions and I'm just like, holy shit. If I had to answer those questions, I might lose my mind. These questions are great. So, okay, Scott plays 2K. If you could build a realistic team around Scotty, what players would you pair him with? Okay. Realistic. Okay. I put him at point. I put DeJounte at 2. They can split the duties 1-2. My 3 would be it would be Mikal Bridges. My 4 would be Cam Thomas. My 5 would be Miles Turner. I'd probably get killed on the glass though. So I think I need some rebounding and I think I need some defense there. Hang on one second. Who am I going to put? Maybe replace Cam Thomas with, really great rebounder, good defender, rebounder. I mean, I said Cam Thomas. I meant Cam Johnson. So Scotty DeJounte, Mikal. Who do I put at the 4? That's like a great rebounder. Precious Achua. Who's a great rebounder? Saying OG. No. Oh, you're saying ideal, right? Like ideally. Laurie Marketing would be awesome. But then I might change my 5. So Laurie and Kristaps, like that would be interesting. So Laurie Marketing, Kristaps Porzingis, DeJounte Murray, Scotty Barnes, Mikal Bridges. That would be freaking awesome. That would be awesome. Okay, yeah, that's my answer. Okay, Ken Boo. Hey Rob, mailbag question. If you call the shots, what move did you make today or before the deadline to improve the team? Okay. I would trade Thad plus Gary, probably take back a contract and picks. I would tear it down. I don't care about what I surrendered to San Antonio. This draft is shit. I don't care. And then I would trade Siakam, and I would probably also trade Jakob. Yeah, I would tear down like completely. It may, and yeah, I would trade Dennis and Jakob at the deadline as well. Like we're talking wholesale. Like I'm shipping out. I mean, if I can get a second round pick, no, not a second round. If I can get a late first and a contract for Dennis, I'm doing it. If I can get a late first and a contract for Jakob, I'm doing, and a couple of role players, I'm doing it. If I can get Kevin Herter and Harrison Barnes and 2 picks, like I'm going pick equity all the way. And I'm going to trust my scouting department. And I'm going to trust that with like a couple of cracks at the cherry that I'm going to get developing players that I can actually work around Scotty, or I can actually parlay a lot of those picks and get, something good, right? Because there are teams out there that can't afford their players. Like for instance, OKC, right? They're going to have Josh, Jalen, Chet, Shea. They can't afford 4 max slots, right? So one of those guys is going to come up. Not that I want Josh Giddey in light of everything that's happened, but you look at a lot of small market teams and they're in a similar boat that way. I mean, I look at what New Orleans has done. Look at how they've drafted. They were talking about it yesterday during the in-season game. It's very interesting. Look at their draft record. I mean, they're drafting pretty much consistently outside the lottery, with the exception of Dyson Daniels, who's awesome. Just hasn't played a lot, but he's starting for them in spurts when CJ was out. I mean, we're talking Dyson. I mean, apart from Jackson Hayes, they've pretty much hit on everything. And I think not enough people talk about how good Brandon Ingram has been and what a great win overall that Anthony Davis trade was for both sides. Really, if you want to talk about, teams that won on both sides, it's probably these guys. I love Brandon Ingram. Whoa. Forget Mikal Bridges. Let's put Brandon Ingram on there. No, I'm kidding. We said realistic, so we'll keep Brandon Ingram off of it. But yeah, so I think that I would do a lot of wholesale Anthony Simons for Pascal and trade for Miles Turner if possible. Like, see, I just don't like Simons. Like, I understand the appeal. I'm not a fan of players who don't play defense. Okay, 96 finest. 1, could you see the Raptors making small moves, like possibly trying to acquire a player who might not be a world beater but can help out? I was thinking TJ McConnell or DeLon Wright, Tyus Jones. Okay, so Tyus Jones, TJ McConnell, DeLon Wright. So those are basically, in my opinion, my estimation, 3 point guards who are better than Dennis Schroder and Malachi Flynn. I mean, yeah, I guess DeLon and Tyus are on a team that's going nowhere, but I imagine the team that's going nowhere would prefer to keep Tyus Jones. DeLon might be available. I'm not really sure what you would give for him, though. Like, what are you giving up? Thaddeus Young plus picks? Like, man, I really hope this team does not parse out more picks for role players. TJ McConnell can't shoot very well, although he's a very gutsy and, very interesting guard. And I think that he would probably provide a hell of a lot more than Malachi Flynn right now. I also don't think that the Pacers are in any position to give him up. So, yeah. Number 2, when do you think the Raptors should give Javon Freeman Liberty a try as a backup? And are there any players in the G League like Hamidou Diallo or even in the 905 that could come up and provide something for the Raptors? I gotta be honest, I don't watch enough G League to be able to conclusively say there are this many players in the G League. However, I will say that the talent across the world and across the league has just gotten so much better. Like, I've been watching a little bit of European basketball, and one player that I think, who's currently playing for Partizan Belgrade, who could probably give the Raptors a little bit something that they don't have right now, although I'm not really sure what would go out to make room for him, would be Bruno Caboclo, right? I mean, he's 6'10", 250, 255 with a 7'7" wingspan. He's fully turned himself into a center who can shoot, and he's shooting like 36% from 3. And he's been really good the last couple of years, man. Like, he's an elite shot blocker. He's a really good transition player. And just some of the feel stuff with him has gotten a lot better. Like, when I watch him play basketball, I'm like, oh shit, this guy doesn't feel like a guy who's learning how to play basketball anymore. He looks like a guy who's actually learned how to play basketball. So, I mean, with all his physical tools, I would love to see him. In terms of Javon Freeman Liberty, I mean, I would give him a try yesterday, right? Like, I mean, I think Darko said something about him rolling an ankle or something recently. So if this is just going to be one of those shit out of luck, things where he's just going to keep getting injured, that's going to suck. But I think he has some very, very interesting feel for the game, which is more than I can say for a lot of players on this team. Ned saying, sorry, my throat is getting a little bit. Hold on one sec. So Ned asking, what factors contribute to a higher level of passion among Europeans, specifically Balkan fans, compared to fans in the US and Canada, in your opinion? Good question. Damn, I don't know. Okay, I say this as a person from the Balkans, so please don't get offended, anybody. But it's just, honestly, it's culture. It might be just culture. Like, I mean, basketball is such a huge cultural thing in Serbia, also in Lithuania, also in Croatia. Like, I think, okay, there are other sports that are really big in Croatia, but specifically for, former Yugoslavian teams, like basketball is such a huge part of our upbringing. I've talked about it before, how, like, if your father teaches you like the history of the game from your country, like there's also like the concept of like, like what the Raptors championship did for, if you consider what the Raptors championship did for Canada basketball, right? Like seeing success in your backyard is good for the growth of the game within that, backyard. And so, Serbia is a very small country, and we've produced a ridiculous number of NBA players over the years, right? Even guys who never came over, like Milos Vujanic, so many guys. Dejan Bodiroga, like there's so many guys, right? Like who are just so good, who are like, there's so many guys. My God, Novica Velishkovic. There's so many guys who are just like, I think they were like stars in Europe, but maybe they just didn't want to make the jump over, or they didn't for whatever reason, financial or otherwise. But they were for sure like NBA talents. And to be such a small country to produce that many people who play. Also, I think Serbs are unusually tall. I think that might have something to do with it as well. Just like being good at things is it's good for national identity. There could also be, financial element of this where there's just not as much stuff, to distract you. There's not as many sports. Like we're not spreading ourselves between baseball. I mean, soccer is a thing, obviously, but there's not like, it's not like here where there's like 17 different sports to follow. You know what I mean? Like there's like one major one, and then there's a secondary one, right? So I don't even think it's a pay cut necessarily. It's more like a sureness cut. It's more like a trust cut, right? So, you're seeing every year, you're seeing at least one Serbian player drafted, and of course, this can go right back to Peja Stojakovic, Vlade Divac. Like, there's so many guys who kind of come over, and prior to the breakup of Yugoslavia, like there was Dino Raja, there was Tony Kukoc, there were so many guys, Dražen Petrovic. Like there's so many guys, and these guys were great. Like they were all-star level players. Like Peja finished top 4 in MVP voting one year. Vlade was, starting center for a team that went to the finals. You gotta understand like the greatness of these players. Petrovic was, an all-star and considered one of the best players in the world. So it's not like, you know what I mean? Like Lithuania had, Arvydas Sabonis for sure. That's a national pride. But it's not like Andres Biedrins with Latvia, like where it's like, okay, one of our players made it and he's a role player. You know what I mean? Like it's more like Dirk Nowitzki in Germany, Franz Wagner in Germany, where like, okay, these guys are like legit players that everyone is celebrating, and they are from where we are from. I think that's it's a source of national pride. Anyways, 84 Iron Mike, what's good, Rob? My question is, when will Bobby Bloodclap Webster do the right thing, which is trading Gary for Lou Dort and Jakob Poeltl for Miles Turner? Would you pull the trigger on those trades? I would. The other team would have to be held at gunpoint and drunk to do it. The starting lineups would be Barnes, Dort, OG, Pascal, Turner. Dennis would come off the bench. Great show. Yeah, man. I mean, like, I would love if those teams would do that. But with Isaiah Joe, like, fundamentally a much better player than Gary Trent Jr. already in OKC. Why did they do that? Like, they'd be losing one of the best defenders in the league. Gary cannot replace that. They also have Casey Wallace, plays like 1-2. He doesn't really fit a need for them. They have Shea, Josh, Jalen. Like, Lou Dort is something they don't have on their roster unless you're trading OG Anunoby. You're not getting Lou Dort. Erica says, hey, Rob, what are your thoughts on the in-season tournament? Who do you think will win? And question for fun, if the Raptors were going against any of these qualifiers, Kings, Pels, Lakers, Suns, Pacers, Celtics, Bucks, or Knicks, who do you think they would have the best chance of beating in a one-game elimination, and why? Okay, so first of all, I need to check NBA.com to see who won game one. Hang on one sec. This will help me clarify who will win. Let me make my prediction based on that. So I watched both games yesterday and it was highly engaging. So right now, Milwaukee is about to probably beat New York. And I have a feeling Phoenix is going to beat LA. I mean, I'm hoping Phoenix is going to beat LA personally, which would be great for everyone who's just kind of hoping that New York and LA end up in Vegas. I'm just hoping that ends that for them, and we just get to see some of my favorite players there. In terms of who do I think will win, I can't. Geez, I'm inclined to say, I mean, the team that I want to win is probably my least likely to win. So I want the Pacers to win or the Pelicans to win. And I have a feeling that it's going to go to either Milwaukee or Phoenix. I'll go with Phoenix. Nah, I won't go with Phoenix. Shit. I don't know. I mean, I wish I knew. I saw this question earlier. I've been thinking about it for a while. I have no idea. Yeah, I'll go with the Pacers because I want them to win. They also have a huge incentive to win because they have like 10 players on their roster that make under $3 million. So this $500,000, cash grab could be a big thing for them. Plus, like, they're a small market team. This is major national attention. They probably want it more than anybody else. They look like they're really, really going for it. Tyrese Halliburton's talking about defense, even though he really doesn't play defense or can't play defense. And he's the only player in the league that was like one of my favorite players who does not play defense. Quite frankly, like, he is not a good defender. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown took him to the woodshed yesterday, and they still won somehow. In terms of who I think the Raptors could beat, who do I think we have the best chance to beat? See, it's interesting because we've already this season we've beat the Suns, we've beat the Pacers, and we've beat the Bucks. Who do I think we have the best chance to beat among those 8 teams? I think our best chance probably is against the Kings. I don't mean to be down on the Kings. I think they're good. Domantas Sabonis struggles against length, man. He struggles against length and size, and we have a lot of it. Take him out of the picture. You're just dealing with Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox going downhill. I think they could be a huge problem for you, but, I'll trust OG to turn the water off on one of those guys. Trust Scotty to turn the water off on the other guys. It's not turn the water off completely. You're not going to stop a guy like De'Aaron Fox. He's averaging 30 points per game, but I think you have probably a decent chance against them. I don't like our chances against the Pelicans. Just specifically, I just don't like that matchup for us. I think Jonas Valanciunas would have his way with Jakob Poeltl, like old practice times. I think, him being a stretch big creates problems for us. Yeah. And apart from that, apart from the Pelicans, apart from the Kings, I think maybe the Lakers. I know they've won all their games and whatever, but yeah, and LeBron's playing crazy, but yeah, something about it. I don't think even though we beat the Suns, I don't like our chances against the Suns. If they've if they're trying and things go right, like, I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah. Okay. Get Paul. Oh, I have a lot. Okay, cool. Whoa. Okay. 4 questions. When do you predict the Raptors will be in the finals next? Will we win? When will we be in the finals? 2026? I mean, that's as early as it's going to be. Do you think Scotty will re-sign with the Raptors? Have we given him reasons to stay besides words? He will resign the first one. I don't know about the second one though. Gotta be honest. Like I don't know about the second one. Number 3, will Scotty win MVP? Yes. Number 4, what are our chances of getting a co-star for Scotty? Is Shea even compatible with Scotty? Yeah. Any player who can pass, dribble, and shoot is compatible with Scotty. Any one of them. Pick one and just give him one player who can do those 3 things, and I'll be very happy. I'm a huge fan. Thanks for doing what you do. Also learned a lot about the people on the spectrum. Not sure if that's offensive or not. Hopefully not from your talks. Oh, yeah, that's nice. Thank you so much. Jonathan. Yo, I've grown more accustomed to advanced stats and using tools such as b-ball indexes, scatter plot, and leaderboard tools over the last year. That's awesome. However, the sheer amount of data available on a site like that has me wondering where to even begin or what is even worth looking into. Other than box plus minus, true shooting percentage, value of replacement, are there any other advanced stats that you would highly recommend or would avoid? I would avoid PER, even though I've already referenced it in relation to Chris Boucher. I would suggest looking at dunks and threes EPM, which is an estimated plus minus. I don't mind win shares per 48. I think once you start putting a lot of things together, you can get a pretty good read on it. I don't specifically like on-off splits. I think a lot of these things are context driven in terms of like lineups. Yeah. And I mean, in terms of like what to be most wary about, defensive analytics typically need to do a lot of film study yourself to see, like, again, context wise, where are players in the defense? Are they, constantly sharing time with players who are not very good defensively? Is that potentially hurting them or helping them, etc.? I think that's one thing I would look at. Defensive analytics. In terms of other numbers you could look at, I'm thinking Darko. Yeah, Darko or LeBron. I think they're worth looking at. You can look at Crafted's website. If you ever decide to invest in Synergy, that's interesting. You can get a lot there. And yeah, I mean, you've been looking at B-ball index, but check out Cleaning the Glass. Okay. They have a free trial. I'm pretty sure they have a free trial. Okay, We the North. I don't understand why everyone is so obsessed with this season. I thought we all wanted Darko to develop our young players. He's doing that, and yet everyone is crucifying him for playing guys like Flynn, Precious, McDaniels, and even you mean Grady? Okay. If we want development, people need to have patience. It doesn't happen overnight. I think this fan base has become way too overreactive. We need to start tempering our expectations. This is not like a question, more like venting. If you want my response to it, I think people are critical. I genuinely wonder sometimes if people even know why they're being critical. I don't think I'm being critical for the same reason that people are being critical. I'm being critical because specifically, I don't necessarily think what was said was going to happen is necessarily happening as much as I would like to. And maybe I don't really value guys like, Jalen McDaniels and Malachi Flynn necessarily as much as I value someone like Grady Dick. And so if the difference between playing Grady versus playing Malachi, right, was one win, I'll take the one loss. I don't mind. I just think the upside on someone like Grady, again, is so immense. I understand seasons are a game of tiers and, unfolding plans. And so maybe you have a certain plan for game 1 through 20, another plan from game 21 to game 21 to 40. I think there's like an off-court strategy and an on-court strategy, and maybe the off-court strategy with the chain and Darko talking about like oh, we're going to take everyone to dinner. I'm going to pay out of pocket for dinner. And people are clowning that on Twitter right now. They're like, oh my God, you're going to take millionaires out to dinner. I don't think those people have ever really stopped to understand the human dynamics of what a gesture like that means, right? Because all of his players know that they make more money than he does, right? That's the economics of the NBA. They probably understand that he's one of the lower paid coaches in the league. And so, him offering to take them for dinner, on his dollar, on his dime, Pascal saying, like, hey, the team will cover it. Like, no, like he's saying, no, I will cover it. That kind of lets you know where his heart is, right? And I don't care who you are or how corrupt you are as a person. That's got to mean something to you, right? If as a player, to have a coach who wants you to win, it's a gesture. It's not about, oh, he's really going to buy them something that they can't afford themselves. Sure, they can all afford something that he can't afford right now, but yeah. Um, Scroopy Hooper saying, what kind of realistic trade packages do you think exists in exchange for Pascal Siakam? Do you think any team will actually pony up? And why do you hate Moses Moody? Your buddy Vince really wants to know. That's hilarious. Scroopy Hoopers, are you Vince? Now I want to check this out. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay. Yes, you are. I don't hate Moses Moody at all. I just don't want him to be a central, I don't want him to be a central thing in terms of like what we get back, right? Um, oh, we got new comments. Okay, how do I got to sort this by most recent. Hang on. Oh, you guys are just adding comments. Okay, hang on. I got to go through this again and just filter out the ones that I've already answered. Okay, already answered. Okay, Jason Watson. I'll do it in reverse chronological, and I'll try to be fast about it. Hey Rob, I mean this in a positive way. I listened to a bunch of people attack you on Twitter chat room the other day, Twitter Spaces. Scotty is better than De'Aaron Fox argument. My question is, why do you waste your time with a bunch of losers that just want to attack you? I think you were better than this. I tried to jump in to defend you a few times, but it was gang beat and I couldn't get a word in. Those losers just wanted to cut you down, and you were right. So the way that echo chambers work is we tend to, this is actually a great question, and I'm going to come back to it as my final question. Okay, so I think it's worth coming back to. I'm highlighting it now. I'm definitely just remind me to come back to this. Okay, why do you think Scotty was not a better shooter before coming to the NBA? Why did he not develop it before? Says Mark Andre Jean. I don't know. Why hasn't Cooper Flag developed a jump shot? I think people develop jump shots at different ages. Sometimes it comes down to, Scotty has really big hands, really long arms. I think sometimes this can be a part of it. I think his game developed more as a passer first. Could be because he played closer to the basket when he was younger. It could be bad habits. It could be bad development early on. I mean, I can tell you for sure he's been developing his jump shot for the last 4 years, right? But it doesn't come as easily to certain people. Just like, you could say, why has Pascal Siakam not developed a jump shot? He's shooting 19.8% after playing professional basketball for 7 years. Why hasn't he developed his jump shot? He's clearly a hard worker. I think people have to actually shoot a jump shot in the NBA to realize how difficult it is to do at game speed. It's not easy. And yeah, I mean, there are people out there who will tell you that anyone can shoot 38% from three. Like any professional player can. With enough work, probably. I think most professional players, unless their form is fundamentally broken, can get to 36 to 38. I think 40 becomes harder. So Scotty, getting to this point right now, it's not like he was a complete non-shooter. It's not like he's Ben Simmons or something like that, right? So I just think it's a matter of developing at different times. Answered that already. Answered that. Igor, hello. I asked if Koloko doing any kind of basketball practice like shooting while he wait to be better help. Thank you. Yes, he's been doing a lot of skill work. He's been doing shooting drills. He's doing post-up work. He's been doing one-on-one stuff. He just hasn't been playing games, and I believe he's not doing contact 5-on-5. Is Pascal getting traded at the deadline? Kevin Thompson asks, is Pascal getting traded at the trade deadline? I think he is gone since Scotty is the main guy now. Yes, I think he should be traded at the deadline. I don't know if he will be, but I think he should be. Will Scotty finish the season averaging 20 plus points per game, or at least making the All-Star game? I think he should finish the season averaging 20 points per game. He's averaging like what 19.6 right now. 20 should be easy, yeah. Okay, back to the Scroopy Hoopers comment. Weird channel, Vince. Okay. Do you think any team will actually pony up? And why do you hate Moses Moody? Your buzzer buddy really wants to know. I don't hate Moses Moody. I like Brandon Podziemski more in terms of Golden State prospects. Now, the deal that you DM'd me had Moody plus Podziemski plus Chris Paul for Pascal Siakam. Interesting. I just don't know why Golden State gives up so much. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even saying Chris Paul is like some holy grail of equity right now, but like, you got to understand, like Pascal Siakam is playing like the 90th best player in the NBA. You know what I mean? Like they'd have to really, really believe in him long term, and they could, and they might. You know, it depends. Like, I feel like when I talk to scouts, they still see Pascal as a top 40 player in the NBA, right? But he hasn't been a top 40, top 50, top 60, top 70 player this year. To date, he's been closer to like the 110th, the 120th best player. Now, this was something that we're talking about. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Esfandiar Barhani, the guy on Twitter. He used to work for Raptors Republic. So that guy, or he worked for the Score, I guess. That guy had ever go back and forth today about Pascal Siakam's on-off splits and stuff. And he was talking about how historically Pascal has been able to elevate some bench units and stuff. And so the historical precedence is still there that he's still a good player because he can do that stuff just like Jokic. And I pointed out, like, you are comparing the guy who is number one in the NBA in box minus the guy who's like number 108. And he kind of retorted back with, hey, like, historically, he's been able to do this. And that's where I say draw the line on history, because I've mentioned this many times before, going back to last year, there is some precedence for guys who are in that 29 to 30-year-old range, and Siakam will be 30 this year, of falling off a cliff in terms of like production, right? The burst is leaving slowly, right? All the concerns that I have about Zach LaVine, who, by the way, is a younger player than Siakam, are there with Siakam even more because he's not the shooter LaVine is. When the burst goes for Siakam, if he continues to shoot the way he's shooting right now, he could be one of the worst players in the NBA. You really don't know how quickly this goes, but man, when it goes, right? And at that point, what will he be, right? Once you start taking athleticism off the table for Siakam, you really are like you're diminishing the defense, which has already been diminished a lot, right? You're taking away a lot of the shot blocking, switchability. He won't be able to guard, twos. Not that he really can right now, but at least he's trying. He won't be able to do that anymore. So he'll be like a hang back big who doesn't block shots, who doesn't rebound very well, who doesn't shoot very well, who's kind of like a decent passer, but not the greatest passer. Like, I mean, he becomes a role player so fast, you have no idea once you take the quickness away. And I have yet to see a single player in NBA history who is quicker at 31 than they were at 29. So bear in mind that other teams, if I'm aware of this, I'm a guy on YouTube, I'm aware of this. Most teams are aware of this as well. So you might be massively disappointed with what the actual market is for Pascal Siakam. Okay, do we have the pieces to build around Scotty in terms of... So Caden, the Canadian, says, do we have the pieces to build around Scotty in terms of young talent like Orlando? And if not, what can we do to acquire said pieces? Sorry, I'll make myself a little bit bigger because I'm sure that's a little bit annoying. Can you guys still sort of see the questions, or does it matter that you can't see the questions? I don't know. Sorry. Let me just try to make this screen a little bit smaller. Because I'm realizing like I'm just having like very, very big. Okay, that probably makes it a little bit better. Hang on. Hang on. Is that better? I don't know. Okay. So, do we have the pieces to build around Scotty in terms of young talent? Yeah. I mean, I like Christian Coloco next to him. I like Grady Dick next to him. I like OG next to him. Apart from that, I'm struggling in terms of young pieces, right? So that's where I'm at. Malachi's okay, not great. Precious is okay, not great. You need a dynamic guard, and I think if you're trading Siakam or you're trading expirings or you're trading picks or whatever, that's what I would like to see back: a dynamic guard and a stretch big. Those two. If Coloco is healthy and he becomes a stretch big, great. But dynamic guard would be very useful. Assuming that OG becomes a spot up shooter and then Grady becomes a movement shooter, you have some of the right pieces for sure. Toronto QH7Y9. Will Scotty be this generation Vince Carter in this city in terms of popularity? Wow. No, probably not. But yes. I mean, it'll be for a completely different reason. It'll be because of winning. It'll be because of character. It won't be because of highlights and stuff like that, right? Like Vince was completely on another planet. You gotta understand, this is like for a few years, he led the entire league in voting for All-Star Game. Like he was huge. He was international. I remember going to Nepal, and understand this, in 2002, 2003, I think I went to Nepal, 2003, and I saw a purple jersey, and I looked and I was like, Vince Carter in Nepal. I remember seeing a Alvin Williams jersey, weirdly enough, in Sierra Leone, Africa. You understand like how big Vince made the Raptors? Like y'all don't even understand. It's huge. I think I remember watching like an Indian music video or movie where there was a Vince Carter jersey. There were a ton of rap videos with Vince Carter jerseys. Onyx had a freaking like song like Slam Harder, Onyx to Vince Carter. Y'all remember that? So I mean, like shit, like he was huge. Vince Carter was in a Fabulous video, right? This Is My Party. Vince had a cameo in that. Fun fact: DeMar DeRozan had a cameo in Master P's video for Cookie Money. I don't know if you guys seen that, but definitely Google it. It's hilarious. Yeah, sorry, I got off topic, but my point is like it'll be a different type of popularity. It's a completely different sport right now. The growth of the game that Vince took, that growth can never be replicated because you're never going to be able to turn back the clock to 1999 and have this city not give a shit about basketball anymore, right? Vince was like, he took it from like 10% to like 60%, right? And then the championship run took it from like 60% to like 85%, you know what I mean? But like, so if Scotty takes it from 85 to 90, it'll never touch what Vince did. You know what I mean? Like no one can ever do for this city what Vince did. Which is also why I think like people need to stop being so salty about it. Pool Kid saying, how likely is it that Precious, Flynn, Thad, or Gary Trent Jr. are here next year as they are all on expiring contracts? I think Trent might sign with us, but I'm not sure about the other three. If I had to bet, I'm going to assume that Precious is the guy who's there among those four players. Just my thought. Is it possible there's players who Scotty can throw out there that he really wants to play with, kind of like how LeBron recruited D Wade and Bosh since they would play well together, etc. Either way, who do you think he would fit insanely well with that we could realistically obtain? Well, Jalen Suggs. I think that would be a really interesting combination in the backcourt. I kind of wanted that pairing last year, but then Jalen Suggs this year is like leading the entire league in in defensive EPM. So I have a feeling the Magic will keep him. Plus, he's doing his whole Hulk Hogan moniker shit in Orlando. So that's been kind of funny to watch as well. I really don't think he would be the worst pairing with Cade as long as we understand whose team this is. It's not Cade's team. Really wouldn't be the worst, but you want shooters around him, and Cade can't shoot. I think Jalen Green would be an interesting, guy to put around him. Like, again, dynamic guard, but I don't like his defense. In terms of players that he knows that he would play well with, I think Onyeka Okongwu would be a player that comes to mind. Caleb Houston, Moses Moody. I mean, there's a lot. Like, Scotty knows everybody. That's the thing, right? Like, Scotty knows a lot of people. I think if you make him your franchise cornerstone, which certainly the Raptors are, he'll be a really positive recruitment tool for you. I think he'll be a really positive recruitment tool. And I think Darko will be a really positive recruitment tool as well. Not only with Eastern European players and European players in general who would like to play for a European head coach because it'll feel more comfortable for them. Unfortunately for us, we got Dennis Schroder, but consider it a demo for how other European players might feel. And maybe, consider, I don't know, Sasha Vezenkov coming to Sacramento, right? Like players like that. Well, how great would it be to get a EuroLeague MVP like an Anthony Parker, like to come and just sign with you for mid-level? Like these players are often reluctant to make the jump because they don't necessarily trust how they're going to be treated. But if you have a European head coach and a player like Scotty Barnes, who is, playing that style of basketball already there, I think it will help. Bial Bag TL, Rob, what realistic trade could we do to acquire DeJounte Murray? He's my dream fit for Scotty. Realistic Drew. I don't think we have a realistic trade, to be honest, man. Like, unless they really value Siakam, that would be the only way I could see it working. They're kind of comparable, but I think DeJounte's younger and better. Personally, I like DeJounte better. Come at me. I don't care. Like, I like DeJounte Murray better than Pascal Siakam. That's just my opinion. He's a better shooter. He's a better defender. I think he's just a better passer. I think he's a better player. He's just not as big. And he hasn't made 2 All-NBA teams. That's it. That's really what it is. He's an all-star too, And he makes a lot less money. I think he signed for $30 million. I was very surprised by that. I thought he can get a little bit more, but whatever. I don't know. I don't think you have the pieces, to be honest, unless you were making a trade around Siakam. I think maybe OG plus picks would get it done, but or maybe just OG period would get it done, depending on how Atlanta felt, man. Atlanta's been good this year, so I don't really necessarily see why they would make that trade. Let's see here. There was one that I said I was going to go back and answer. Here we go. This will be my final. I hate that this has already gone over an hour, but let me try to get to this. So in terms of Twitter Spaces and getting into debates with people and stuff, right? So I've gone back and forth about this. Is it a waste of time? Is it useful? Is it a good exercise in patience? Do I benefit from it? Does it hurt me? Does it hurt my reputation? I don't know. I've thought about it from like 1,000 different angles. Here's the thing. Social media and our lives in general, like our brains are designed for congruency, safety, right? They're not necessarily wired to focus on things that are going to challenge us, challenge our opinions, challenge our convictions, right? Now you might ask, okay, Rob, these are 18 to 20-year-old kids who have no jobs, who are sitting on Twitter at 2 a.m. arguing that Pascal Siakam is better than freaking Michael Jordan. What do you plan to learn here? Honestly, man, I'm learning about this fan base. I think I'm learning about opinions that I would never come across on a day-to-day basis. Like, there's no chance in hell I know anyone in my life who thinks the way these people think, who talks the way these people talk. And, when I was younger, I used to have teachers who were like 35, 36, 40, whatever. And they would sometimes talk about how they don't know what's going on with my generation being, kids who were in high school. They didn't understand the music that we were listening to. They didn't understand how we were talking. They didn't understand anything, right? So for me, this was like a wish that I made for myself back then, which was I'm always going to be willing to engage. I'm going to be willing to talk. I'm going to be willing to learn. I'm going to be willing to listen to people who don't think the way I think, who are not in my age not in my social, bracket, not in my socioeconomic bracket. I don't like to live in a bubble. I like to be outside my bubble, outside my comfort zone. I like to have conversations that push me, challenge me, maybe even frustrate me. And it may not seem very straightforward. And sometimes those conversations have residue and they kind of leave like a bad taste in your mouth, and it kind of like ruins your night. And then now you have bridged past, it's no longer productive. Now you have absolutely done something that's self-destructive. But I think engaging in a conversation as a pure thought exercise, especially if it's not bothering you, if it doesn't ruin your day, it doesn't, like, I don't know. I think it was worthwhile. I think that particular space, the two spaces that I participated in, were absolutely worthwhile. I think I learned a bit. Oak Tree saying good to have friends in high and low places. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's great. I think it's great to have friends, who rack up credit card debt and haven't heard, of a GIC, or, haven't heard, they don't own their home. They don't have the same problems that you do. But then it's good to have, a friend who's maybe a vice president of a Fortune 500 company. It's good to know that guy too. It's good to know both. It's good to be somewhere, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to have all friends that are actors and casting agents and directors. I don't want to live that way. I'm not like that person. I want to have friends who are baristas. I want to have friends who work odd jobs. I want to have friends who are, plumbers and firemen, not to borrow a quote from, JJ Redick. Because I can get along with anybody and we talk about anything. And at the end of the day, like, we live in this kind of divided society where, like, we learn to kind of hate each other. Like I feel it. Believe me, when I go onto a Twitter space and people be like, this is the guy who, said all this stuff about Fred VanVleet. I hate this guy. And I was just like, wow, what an amazing thing to have such a powerful opinion. Like, this person might have a stronger opinion about me than I do about my stepfather, who was physically abusive towards me. Like, the vitriol and anger and hatred that this person holds towards me, a stranger on the internet who talks about basketball, is greater than that which I hold towards someone who created some of the biggest childhood trauma in my life. That's crazy to me. But also, it is interesting too. It's interesting to see how quickly we can do that, right? I don't ever want to be a person that just hates people for having an idea that's different than mine. If you think that Pascal Siakam's a top 5 player, please understand, I don't hate you. I don't hate you at all. I question what you're watching. I certainly would like, to help you understand it a little bit better, but I don't hate you. I could never hate you for that. If you're someone who defended Fred VanVleet to the very end, or defends Nick Nurse, or hates, if you want Scotty Barnes traded, you think Scotty Barnes is not a good player, I don't hate you. That's crazy talk. How could I hate somebody? I don't know. For something as trivial as their opinion about basketball. It's absolutely, scary to me. So I think that, increasingly social media shows us more and more of what we already think. The algorithm shows us more and more, right? We're very easily able to, create a block. I block a ton of people. So clearly I'm not immune to this. Like, you can block, you can unsubscribe, you can whatever. I don't want to see this guy. I don't want to see this. A lot of people did that when I criticized Pascal Siakam last year. People were like, oh my God, this is, how dare you, say he's not a top 5 player. How dare you say he's not top 10 player? Well, how are we feeling now? Right? People were mad about that. How dare you criticize the Jakob trade? How are we feeling now? You know what I mean? All of these things, but people just unsubscribe. They unsubscribe. They don't want to hear it anymore. They don't want to hear it anymore because whatever. They just don't want to hear it. And then they just talk to other people who think the way they think. But they don't stop talking about the people that they unsubscribe from. They continue to talk about that loser, parasocial, lunatic, Scotty Nuthugger, Pensire basketball. And the more they talk about you, but not to you, the more you become vilified. And so sometimes I think that it's good to go into these spaces where people have already formulated 1,000 opinions about you without ever actually having heard from you, and to actually give people a perspective on, this is a human being that you are spending so much time hating, right? I certainly did not go in there to, espouse hate. I went in there and had a really rational discussion for 50 minutes. Not one person yelled. And then we had the second space, and then there was a lot of yelling. But the first one was real respectful. Anyways, guys, have a good one. I will see y'all tomorrow. I'm going to go check out the Phoenix Suns versus the Los Angeles Lakers. This should be fun. I'm going to get my popcorn. And yeah, I'm liking this in-season tournament thing. It's pretty cool. There was a really interesting video by Heat Check on how the courts were constructed and why everyone's falling, which I think is really interesting and kind of just makes you realize that even a multi-billion-dollar business like the NBA can do some real amateur, bush league convenience store level bullshit, right? They rushed the courts, they didn't test them, and that's why players are slipping. Too long didn't read. That's the reality. I mean, my God, can you imagine if a player had a career-ending injury? These guys just don't give a fuck, do they? But imagine if it was Victor Wembanyama. Who we facing tomorrow? We're facing the Miami Heat, man. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. If Scotty leaves Toronto, that'd be a really sad day. I agree. But the crazy thing is, I would support him wherever he goes, right? I'm just being real about it. I've never been the type of person to hate a player for leaving. At the end of the day, players are players. This is a job. This is a contract. This is a team. It's a destination. Certainly don't hate Vince Carter for playing for New Jersey or, wanting out of this absolute dumpster fire of an organization, Richard Petty, Rob Babcock, and clown show that was running back then. It'd be great if he retires a Raptor, though. That would be fantastic to have my favorite player playing in my city. That would be amazing. But if it doesn't end up that way, I hope that the Raptor fans will continue to support him because he has done nothing but be a model citizen so far. But yeah. All right. Take care, guys. Have a good one. Peace. And make sure to hit subscribe on your way out. That would be super appreciated.